Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We are back with another episode of Daily Palantir. On today's show, we have one big topic to discuss, which is that Palantir gets a $115 million contract extension for the Army Vantage contract. Now, before I get into it, this was the contract that analyst Louis DePalma from William Blair was concerned that Palantir would not get. In fact, about 8 days ago, when Palantir was about $19, he put out a note to his clients saying that, look, we are not confident that Palantir is going to be able to get this extension based upon how the government is procuring contracts. They're going to be more multi-vendor, open source based, which means Palantir is likely not going to get the contract that investors think they're going to get. Louis DePalma was wrong about that, and we'll talk about his updated thoughts after what happened today when they got the contract, but that sent the stock from $19 to $17 right now. Looking at it after hours, $18.18. Palantir did hit $19 today, but it came back down to about $18.18. And investors were scared that, that if they're not getting these types of governmental deals, does that mean the moat in the government business, Palantir did $332 million of government revenue in Q3. Is that going to start declining dramatically if they're not able to renew some of these contracts? Well, today, at least, that seems like that concern is not necessarily going to happen. Palantir extends their work to power the U.S. Army Vantage program. I want to read a little bit from this press release and then talk about some of the reactions we got from analyst firms that are bullish on Palantir and William Blair that is still continuing to be bearish on Palantir. So this contract is a one-year continuation of our work in support of the U.S. Army's objective to institute a long-standing Army data platform capability. The total contract value, inclusive of options, is $115.04 million, $97 million of initial funding, and $35.6 million in remaining performance obligations. Remember, Palantir got a $458 million contract back in 2019. This is the fourth year of that contract. So the Army Vantage is a cornerstone in the U.S. Army's transformative efforts to leverage data as a strategic asset, integrating data sources from within the Army and across the DoD to provide a holistic, real-time operational enterprise data ecosystem. Under the extended contract, Palantir will continue to provide its open data and analytics platform through continuous delivery to provide new AI-enabled capabilities and open platform infrastructure that promotes the program's evolution to Army data platform vision. This extension is a testament to Palantir's continued success in empowering U.S. military decision makers and actionable insights and advanced analytical capabilities through the delivery of a secure and open data environment. One thing before I read the quote from Akash Jain, who's the president of USG at Palantir, this part was really interesting. Throughout the program's lifespan, Army Vantage has enabled the Army to recoup savings on over $700 million in additional de-obligated funds per year, amounting to nearly $4 billion since the program's instantiation. So obviously, the almost $500 million that they're paying to Palantir ends up paying for itself if you're saving, $4 billion since the program started. Army Vantage is instrumental in optimizing readiness, training, logistics, talent management, and contract efficiency while promoting data-driven approaches that provide soldiers and other Army partner organizations access to the data and tools they need to serve their missions across the entire Army enterprise. So it's a very big data platform for the Army to be able to use, powered by Palantir. Army Vantage integrates with the Army and Defense Department's existing systems and capabilities, ensuring that the critical data is accessible to commanders and decision makers at all levels and across a range of operational theaters and missions contexts wherever and whenever this information is needed. Now, Akash Jain, president of Palantir USG, says Palantir is honored to extend our work with the U.S. Army as it evolves into Army data platform solution. Building on our shared history of operational excellence and innovation, our partnership has consistently provided the Army with a decisive edge in data-driven Building on our shared history of operational excellence and innovation, our partnership has consistently provided the Army with a decisive edge in data-driven decision-making. This extension is evidence of the value we bring to the nation's defense, including our joint efforts to provide more commercial technology providers the opportunity to equip soldiers with the innovation they need to meet their most pressing challenges. This is a big deal. This is a big deal for a couple of reasons. Number one, again, William Blair, analyst Louis DePalma said, we're not getting this deal. We ended up getting this deal. What was really interesting is that I did a segment on one of these episodes a couple of days ago where Shyam Sankar called him out on Twitter. I mean, for a C-suite executive, for the CTO of Palantir to have to call out an analyst when they shouldn't be calling these people by names, right? I mean, they need to go run a company, go build an enterprise. Palantir must have felt that report that Louis DePalma put out was so egregious, so sloppy in terms of its analysis around what was happening with Palantir. And obviously, they didn't like seeing their stock price tank 10% when that happened. That they ended up saying, you know what? This is something we have to call out publicly. And for Shyam Sankar to call him out publicly and to link the article where the Army says, hey, no, you've got this wrong. This is not what we said, and you're misinterpreting the way and the context of how we said that, just shows that Louis DePalma is someone I don't think we can listen to when it comes to Palantir. Now, Louis DePalma said today, this is a post from Palantir Research, that he wrote the original Vantage contract in 2019 had been for 4 years. Palantir is not being given a new 4-year commitment this time around with the Army's Phase 3 plans to split the Vantage program into pieces and award a multi-vendor contract. He also wrote that Palantir stock may start to reflect reality over the next 3 months once it is fully digested that the U.S. Army last night only awarded Palantir a short 1-year $115 million ceiling extension for Palantir's second largest contract on its books. I thought this was pretty ridiculous. Obviously, a lot of investors knew, and we're going to look at what Raymond James says in a second, another investment firm that is bullish on Palantir, that the Army and the military and the Department of Defense is changing the way that they procure contracts. So in 2019, this is what I said a couple of episodes ago, in 2019, getting a 4-year, $450 million contract, there is a reason that the Army is not giving you in a 4-year, $450 million extension, and that reason is not contextual or contingent upon Palantir not having the ability to execute on these things. It could be for a variety of reasons. And one of those reasons simply might be that they're looking to procure contracts or get vendors in other ways. Palantir is still going to be in the mix to be able to get those deals, but it doesn't mean they have to get an exact 4-year, $458 million contract, given the nature of how the Army might even be implementing the Army Data Vantage program that they've created. So Raymond James responded to this because they thought this was absolutely ridiculous. Raymond James called the extension a chill pill for bears who had worried about the future of this contract in recent weeks. They say, all in, the win is in line with our expectations and provides the Army another year to formalize structure for a successor multi-vendor contract, he wrote in a note to clients, meaning this year it's going to Palantir, and in the future it'll be a multi-vendor contract. It was odd that the Army reconfirming the multi-vendor approach last week was interpreted as an incremental negative when the Army has been clear about this approach for almost a year. And that's the point I was trying to make, is like, the Army has said for a long time, we're going to become more multi-vendor, which means we knew this was going to happen. So Louis De Palma figuring out a way to spin this into some negative, narrative and how Palantir is losing all these deals is like, it's just sloppy analysis. It's very sloppy analysis, in my opinion. And William Blair should be very upset at Louis De Palma in terms of how he's conducting this analysis, because the firm is losing a lot of credibility from my perspective in terms of analyzing Palantir. Like, you can be bearish, but when you're bearish and sloppy, that's just the wrong way to do it. He added that in his view, the win was clearly positive. One of the company's larger awards is incremental versus 2023 levels, and the probability of the win was not 100%. He has a outperform rating on the stock. And it's true. The probability of winning that $115 million extension was not 100%. We were able to win that extension, which was incredibly important. And now it's about the future of how Palantir navigates winning more contracts. One of the things that's important about the government business that I think a lot of people misinterpret, or at least don't understand, or they have like this weird understanding of, even though if you're investing in Palantir, you need to understand the government business and you really need to understand the way defense contracting works, because CARP has tried to be clear about this, but a lot of times people forget about this. Here is a chart from a Seeking Alpha article I found. This is government revenue going from Q1 2020 into Q3 2023. As you can see, government revenue was at 85% year-over-year growth in Q4 of 2020, and since then declined 76, 66, 34, 26. And then in Q1 2022, we had 16% year-over-year governmental revenue growth. That went to 13%, which was at an all-time low for Q2 2022, and then that spiked to 26% in Q2 2023. And so then it came down to 23, 20, 15, 12. And so when you look at this chart at a bird's eye view, you might say, oh my goodness, Palantir's governmental revenue is slowing down in terms of its year-over-year growth. Well, a couple things to point out. First of all, look at this chart. The actual number of dollars are going up and to the right. So in Q3, we had $332 million of revenue from the government space. So that was, that is significantly more than what we had in Q1 2020. So it has gone up. The rate of growth has gone down. Now, in the rate of growth, let's get a little bit deeper into this. Why in Q2 2022 did we go from 13% to 26% after being on a decline for the previous 4 quarters? It's because the government business is lumpy. And CARP has said this many times, which is that, they CAGR'd at 30% for 10 years, I think from 2010 to 2020 in the government business. And some years he said we had 0% growth. Some years we had 85% growth, right? Because it goes on and off. The government business is lumpy. The government just secured $886 billion of a defense spending budget in 2024. That's a lot of money that's going to be going to a lot of these companies. And so some budgets are lower. Some budgets are higher. Sometimes the government shuts down. Sometimes you have new administrations. And so there's so many things that happen. The one thing that you should understand if you're a Palantir investor for the government business is that they have a moat because they've actually proven that their software works. And the reason they got $115 million, they got $250 million for AI ML research September 28th, is because they know how to work with the government. They have the accreditation. They're helping other startups with their FedStar program get into the government, which is not an easy thing to do, getting that accreditation. And they've proven that they can grow the government business because the actual revenue they were getting from the government every single year continues to go higher because they continue to provide valuable services that the government needs from Palantir. So from that perspective, yes, government growth is slowing down, but I think it's going to be lumpy until 2030, and eventually that CAGR will be a bit higher year over year versus it being 40% every single year, because it's not a commercial business. Now, commercial, I do want that to grow at 30% year over year, and that shouldn't be as lumpy. That should be a little bit more scaled and proper in terms of its growth. But government business is way different, right? You can't really just expect the government to just give you a fixed amount of money every single year and it's growing at X amount every year, because that's not how governments work. So from that perspective, I think Raymond James has it correct on Palantir in terms of this was a good thing. This was positive. We expect them to win more in the future. We know the government's going to be more multi-vendor. We think JADC2, I mean, I talked about this. It was called the government contracts you don't know about. I talked about this for an hour on the YouTube channel, and I'll link it in the description again. There are a lot of contracts that Palantir is up in the running for over the next decade. Geopolitical issues, AI enabled throughout the entire government. There's a lot happening. And to take Louis De Palma's word that because this one contract is not necessarily going the way that he thought it would go, even though we ended up getting the contract extension anyway, and pointing that as to a reason that government moat is declining, I think is just silly. I think it lacks a firm understanding of what Palantir is actually doing with the government. Now, final thing I want to say on this is this is what needs to happen internationally. Palantir's relationship with the U.S. government, if that could expand to just 10% of NATO countries, and we can become deeply integrated with them. We're already managing the UK's healthcare system with the NHS contract. I think sometimes we forget, like, we got the NHS contract. If we can do that for Denmark, Sweden, Germany, France, we can get into these countries. We can show them that they need to have a strong military. They need to spend on defense. And they're recognizing more and more, hey, Poland, Lithuania, they're like, yeah, we're on the Baltic states. Maybe we should protect our sovereignty before Russia tries to do some crazy stuff. Like, this stuff matters. And if Palantir can become operating systems for those entire enterprises, remember, Palantir established a regional tech hub in Lithuania just like 6 months ago. We were covering that on the channel. So Palantir has been doing little things here and there to try to get more friendly and integrated with some of these governments. But if they can figure that out, then I think there is a broad opportunity for them over the next 20 years to do what they've done for the U.S. government, which has led to billions and billions of dollars, and I believe will be billions of dollars in the future for these governments around the world. And if they can successfully do that, then there is a lot of growth in the government business, even if it's lumpy, in order for Palantir to continue to be successful there. So I think that's the exciting thing about Palantir, and ultimately that's the exciting thing about the government business. At the end of the day, Louis De Palma was wrong on this, and William Blair was wrong on this. Raymond James has a overweight rating on the stock, so it seems like they were more correct. They understood it in a better way, and we'll see in the future what government deals are left for Palantir. That is it for me. Thank you everybody for watching a week of Daily Palantir. I will be back next week. If you're not subscribed to the newsletter, dailypalantir.com/subscribe, free email newsletter every single day. You'll get that newsletter in your email, and you can get the written version of essentially what this video is every single day to your newsletter. Yeah, that's it. Palantir Weekly will be tonight for those that are watching this on Friday. If you're not watching this, then you can go to the channel and watch Palantir Weekly. We've got a lot to discuss on the podcast today. And that's pretty much it. Thank you everybody for joining. I appreciate you guys. I will see you Monday for another episode of Daily Palantir. Bye everybody.